Tech Trends 24/7 Leaders is a passionate podcast hosted by James P. Quinn on technology innovation. It provides insightful interviews with key and inspiring innovators in areas of corporate technology, office of the future, AI, real estate, sustainability, assistive technologies, and other emerging technologies. Tech Trends 24/7 Leaders will smartly position you where your business, life, and industries are moving for the future.
Paul Konsbruck has been the CEO of LuxConnect SA since October 2021, where he oversees a multi-tier data center and dark fiber operations in Luxembourg. Before this role, he served as communications advisor and later as chief of staff to the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, contributing strategically to the government's agenda. Paul launched his career in media as a journalist and news presenter at RTL Radio Luxembourg, advancing to the position of chief editor at Eldoradio. His experiences are marked by a strong foundation in communication and leadership, enhancing his effectiveness in both public and private sectors.
Paul, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you today. I think it'd be great just to start and understand what your roles and responsibilities are at LuxConnect.
Yes, I'm the Chief Executive Officer of LuxConnect. Previously, I worked for the government. I was the Chief of Staff for the Prime Minister of Luxembourg. But my background is I'm a journalist. I'm used to work in podcasts, but back then I was a radio journalist. So I'm trying to go back in my history and be precise on what I'm saying.
That's good. Terrific. And then if you could just give us a snapshot of the company and your capabilities, because I think you guys are an interesting opportunity and people should be hearing about kind of the offering.
Yes, LuxConnect is a Luxembourgish company. Geographically, we are in the very heart of Europe. So Luxembourg is a country that is neighbored by Belgium, Germany, and France. And we are the largest data center operator in Luxembourg. We have 4 data centers on 2 different sites. And we also do have an optic fiber network that we do provide to mainly telco operators, but also to private businesses.
And then maybe give us a snapshot of kind of the Luxembourg data center market in terms of what you're seeing, what kind of growth, what type of projects in terms of your typical size customer would be positive.
Yeah, I would say historically, the need for data centers in Luxembourg and for an increasing need for data centers goes back a bit more than 20 years ago for 2 reasons. The one was the liberalization of the telco market, so you had more competition in the market. The other one was that you had, back in the time, a lot of also US companies coming to Luxembourg for other reasons. Back in the time, it was mainly fiscal reasons. You might know that companies like Amazon has their European headquarters here in Luxembourg, but also Sky was a big name that was created by Luxembourgish funds back then in the days. And so there was an increasing need for data center capacity. And so back in the time, it was the Luxembourg state, so the government decided to invest into it, but not investing it directly, but creating a privately run company that would provide that capacity, that infrastructure to the business. The other one is that Luxembourg is one of the largest financial places in the world. We are the second biggest fund industry in the world that is based in Luxembourg, behind the United States. So there is an increasing need also from that perspective for all kinds of IT solutions. So that is historically where we come from. Today, however, we have more and more, and that might not be surprising to you, more and more a boom in the market because, of course, the emergence of the artificial intelligence market. And that is something that we face. And I have listened to some of your latest episodes of your podcast, and I can only confirm what was said there, that you have, on the one hand, you have a huge demand for multi-100 megawatt solutions, and on the other hand, you have those very small businesses for whom it is harder and harder to find actually the capacity that they would need.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up because as much as you see in the news that, really in terms of 100 megawatts, 200 megawatts, kind of enterprise customers are really, we spend a lot of time also in that world. They're really looking for future capacity, which is very challenging. I would say really on a global basis. So I think that it's a very good area to focus on. And I think part of your offering kind of caters to that market. Is that correct?
Yeah, we try when I say that Luxembourg is a smaller country, you have to imagine that we have 600,000 inhabitants in this country. I don't know about the miles, but it's 80 to 50 kilometers as large and the height of it. Of course, we do not have the aim, and we do not have the strategy to build those really mega data centers here in the country. And also, I must say that also I confirm what others say in the market, that it would not even be possible to have this kind of capacity for the very short-term demand that is in the market. People who ask us for large capacities, they ask it within the next 6 months or the next 12 months max. So that is not our business. That's not where we're going to go. What we do, we try to be there in the middle of it. So not a very large, and also we of course serve, and we are there for the smaller businesses. But what we try, and that is also why we head more and more to the United States, for all those companies who have a business that is focused on Europe and who want to be closer to their customers, where we can, as with a strategy where you can grow in time and we have the capacity available, and you don't have to have a commitment today about really the huge amount of capacity that you would need, but you can grow your business with the market as it develops, and in parallel you can then also grow your data center capacity and your needs that you would need. That is where we try to be.
Understood. And I think that in terms of EMEA, I think you have an interesting window pane by being in Luxembourg. What are you seeing in terms of the data center market in EMEA?
Yeah, what I would say our very unique selling point, if you could call it like that, is strongly linked to the place and to the country where we are. First of all, it is a very political, stable country. We have no huge changes in our governments. If you would say that we have no, for example, there's no extreme right in our parliament. It's a very moderate country when it comes to political stability. And for example, you could say that for the last government since the end of the Second World War, there was always the same parties, more or less, that were on power. So it's not comparable to the United States, where you have a bipartisan system. We have, of course, coalitions, like in many other countries in Europe as well. But there's always at least one of the parties that have been in the previous government were also in the new government. So that is something that creates continuity in the political decision process. That is one thing. The other thing is the pure quality of the infrastructure. It might not be surprising because Luxembourg is listed as one of the richest countries in the world. So we invest that money in our infrastructure. For example, issues like the electric grid. I have not experienced for years now that the lights didn't go on at home. That is something that we simply do not experience, that there is no electricity. So the quality of the infrastructure is something that is very important. And of course, in our business is even more important. We are in Luxembourg, 25% of all the Tier 4 data centers in Europe are here in Luxembourg. So we might be one of the smallest countries in the European Union, but we have more than a quarter of the Tier 4 data centers placed here in Luxembourg. So that is just to illustrate how much we do care about the quality of the service. And this is especially important for businesses, for example, for the financial market. When you think about the stock exchange and others, there's simply no right to have a mistake in your system. So that is our largest selling point. The other thing is, as I mentioned previously, LuxConnect is until today owned by the state. So we function as a completely private company, and it's not as if the government would interfere into our activity. But the thing is that you have a shareholder where you know that is not focused on pure dividends or something like that, but it's all about the quality. And our aim and our mission is to increase the attractiveness of the ecosystem as such. So that is why it is very keen and very important to our shareholder that we provide the best service that is only possible and not focusing on the commercial success of it.
That makes sense. And I know, Paul, you mentioned AI before. Are you seeing a number of your inquiries and interest as AI type requirements, or that's coming slowly?
It is coming. One has to, well, on the other hand, what I see and what is happening around us, not only in Luxembourg, but in Europe as such, is that you have more and more hyperscalers, of course, who are coming closer to the end customers. So we have, for example, also here in Luxembourg, there is a project of Google to build a new data center facility, also quite close to our facilities. So that is one trend and one boom that we are witnessing, that you have the hyperscalers themselves who build their own data centers to be closer to their customers, and all the activities, well, most of the activities that is behind this is, of course, something that is linked to LLMs and artificial intelligence developments. So that is something that we witness. And then we have a couple of, I would call it spin-offs of those data centers, of those hyperscalers activities. And that is those that come to us and ask for colocation space in our data centers. But it's linked to artificial intelligence indeed, yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot. We're also getting very active where we're working on artificial intelligence requirements that are purely research, where recently we worked with an international finance company whereby they were looking for kind of a research environment, which they wanted to kind of tether to the financial markets. And so we did a whole search for that. So we're starting to see more.
That is something that we see more and more in another area of our activities, and that is what I previously mentioned, high performance computer activity that we do have. We are now investing into a new machine, so a new HPC that is mainly focused on artificial intelligence. So it is an AI factory indeed. And there we witness more and more research projects coming to it. And there are pretty impressive things that are happening. Just to give you a very short example, it's the simulation of the interference of chemicals. So it's just under certain conditions over years and so on. So the idea behind is to simulate how a certain chemical material interacts with another one. So, and that is something that is typically run on HPC, on our HPC, and that is, of course, purely AI models behind. So the future of that, or the end of that, is that you don't need to run all the tests when it comes to pharmaceuticals or whatever. You just, you simulate what is happening there. And that is something that is, it's quite impressive, and you can feel it and you can see it. So it's not something that is theoretical. It's R&D, but it is something that is very, very close to actual businesses behind.
I think that's interesting. So where are you with the HPC offering? Is it active now, or you're ramping up?
Yeah, it's active for 4 years now. So it's called MELUX. And it was a project that is interconnected with other European HPCs. So they actually function in a network of a dozen or so HPCs that are all over Europe. And now we just have, because it comes to end of life actually next year. So we decided to have a renewal of the machine. So the acquisition of the new machine will happen this year. And there will be a completely new HPC that will, as I said, much more focused on GPUs and focused on AI activities. So it's been running for 4 years, and we are planning now for the next 5.
Great. And we're at the beginning part of the year. So what data center trends are you seeing, for the year in 2025, Luxembourg and across EMEA?
Yeah, something that we are witnessing more and more. Well, 2 things. As I said, it's the speed. So our customers and potential customers ask us to have something available very, very fast. So the setup of a room and so on has to work just much, much faster. I would say 3 times faster than we are used to it. And that is something that we are facing, that we are, of course, coping with, and that we can also do. And luckily, we have no shortage in materials anymore as we had it a year or 1.5 years ago. So that is one challenge. The other challenge is sustainability. It becomes more and more important because all those activities are very energy consuming. And the efficiency and the general topic of sustainability is something that is becoming more and more, it has been important for the last 10 years. And it sounds as people were repeating themselves, but I witness that there has even been a boost in this because of it's not only about, the climate change issues and so on, but it's also the pure question about how much energy can I consume and the availability of the energy and, of course, the cost of it, because energy has become more costly, especially in Europe over the last 2 years. So our customers and everybody is becoming much, much, much more sensitive on the energy consumption issues.
I'm glad you brought up sustainability. What are you guys doing at LuxConnect in terms of that you're offering to really highlight and address the sustainability importance?
One advantage that we do have is that we are functioning very focused on the actual need of the customer. So what we have, for example, part of our data centers as still until today, just shell constructions. Meaning that if we have a demand from the customers, we can, at the moment where we negotiating the contracts, we are then deciding to acquire the newest technology to do the fitting of the data center. So the finishing will always be the latest of the technology and the most efficient technology that you can find on the market. So we have the shell construction and everything is prepared for the customer, but the latest technology can be installed the moment that we are actually doing the setup of the room. So, and that is something, of course, if you have a data center that has 20 years and you have all the technology that has also a certain age, you are just less efficient than if you can just buy the newest technology in the market. That is one thing. The other thing is that we use purely green energy. So even though there might be a huge consumption of energy, all the energy that is consumed in our data centers is 100% renewable. So we have green energy all over our data center. So that is something that we can guarantee to our customers, which of course is also important for their marketing, for example. It's much easier to sell a product where you can tell your end customers that you are 100% sustainable in your energy consumption.
Very interesting. And I think in terms of power, what we're seeing, for example, in the States is that power is really it's getting very tricky to find capacity, and you really have to really think of alternative opportunities as it relates to it. So how is the power situation in Luxembourg right now?
Yeah, we have the advantage of being in middle of those other three countries. So we are not, it might, in the first, you might say, well, you are dependent of another country, which is partly true. Only a very small amount of our energy that is consumed in Luxembourg is actually produced in Luxembourg. I would say 20% probably, something like that. So the largest part of the energy that comes from our neighboring countries, but of course we have several options. So we are not totally dependent of one provider of energy. We can actually adapt our energy providers as we need them. And we can see it because there was a huge test with the beginning of the war in Ukraine, the Russian invasion in Ukraine, which completely changed the energy market in Europe. And people were very nervous on the very beginning of that phase because people actually thought that there might be a problem with the energy being provided to, well, not only to Luxembourg, but also to other countries. But that test actually, it worked. So nowadays, a huge proportion of our energy comes from Scandinavia. So that is where we have huge amounts, but it comes from gas-produced energy, of course. And for the rest, it comes from our neighbor countries, mainly Germany and France. So we do not face and we do not see a problem in that issue that there might not be enough energy to provide. But what is happening right now is the investments that are made into renewables. And that is, that's really big numbers that is happening right now. And so the crisis situation that we faced 2 years ago has had a positive effect of the investment strategies of large funds, but also of governments into renewables. There are huge wind farms and solar power plants that are built up just as we speak.
I think that's good because, again, that's a lot of people are struggling with now. So that's it sounds positive that you guys have tackled that. I think that you guys really provide a unique kind of offering into the marketplace in EMEA, and we want to keep in touch with you to hear your continued progress. And we appreciate you being on the podcast, and thank you for being with us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Tech Trends 24/7 Leaders. To learn more about technology trends, you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can also read my book, Tech Trends 24/7 and the Impact of COVID-19, which is rated a must-read book by CIO Insight. The book is available for purchase on Amazon or on our website, Tech Trends 24/7. When conducting research for the book, I was inspired to see how technology innovation was making a positive difference in people's lives. As a result, in 2020, I founded Beacon of Hope 365. Our mission is to leverage technology to help people in need. More information on the charity can be found on beaconofhope365.org. Thanks again for tuning into this episode, and a big thank you to my entire podcast team, Peyton Pellington, Sal Fortuna, and Carmela Patrone. See you on the next episode.